Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our live online panel session on the use of artificial intelligence in construction. I'm Fraser May from CCNZ, and got some great panelists here. Michelle Farrell, our technical manager, is actually going to be facilitating this session. So thanks for that, Michelle. We've also got with us Graham Hill and Michael Butler and Matt Insall. We'll do some proper introductions in just a moment, but while we're waiting, we'll just wait for everyone to enter the room. So that'll take 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get right into it. So thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to a good session today. Just a little bit more housekeeping. You'll see that there is a chat function on the right-hand side of the webinar platform there. So if you click on that, you'll be able to ask any questions. And I guess the intention is that we've got some expertise in the room today, so that you can ask those questions and have them answered. So please ask away with any questions you've got around the use of artificial intelligence in construction using the chat function on the right-hand side. And Michelle will verbalise those after we go through the panel discussion. Now, our structure today is a little bit different from how we usually do a webinar in terms of the presentation style. So this is more of a panel discussion. So I think looks like people are arriving in the room now, so I might hand over to Michelle pretty shortly, and then we will have a brief presentation from Matt. Just a funny story, actually. With technology, there's always something that can go wrong, and the question is how you handle it if it does. So Matt has actually just come back from a power failure at a very inappropriate time as we were triggering the webinar. So sorry you had to go through that, Matt, but yeah, it looks seamless. So no one would know that you're without power for your Wi-Fi router not 5 minutes ago. So thanks for powering through that for us. Great. Okay, so now that we're where we need to be, I'm going to hand over to you, Michelle. So do you want to do a bit more of a formal round of introductions?
Yep, great. Thank you, Fraser. And I think Fraser's going to drop out shortly. He's busy, busy guy. So
I'll see you later. Yeah, let me know if you need me. Bye.
Thanks, Fraser. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming along today. We held a panel discussion at the Auckland branch meeting, CCNZ branch meeting, at the beginning of this year, and we wanted to, present this to the rest of the industry, and it'll be recorded so people can watch it back later on. So there's obviously a lot of interest in AI in the industry, what it's about. I didn't know a lot about what AI was until I met these wonderful guys, and so I've been able to use it a little bit in the last few months to help me work, and we'll just unpack a bit of that, what it means. We're not going to be going a lot of detail into applications of it on sites and things like that. We're more looking at how it works, what are the risks, what are some do's and don'ts, things to look out for. So it's transforming the industry. We are using it for programming, reporting, generating schedules of quantities, encouraging young people into the sector, also machine operation. And we want to talk about how to make sure that AI, that we're managing misinformation, runaway potential, things like that. So we'll be unpacking that a little bit as we go. As Fraser said, if you want to just put your questions into the chat there, then they'll come through, and I can address them as they come. I have a few questions as well, but I'd love to hear how where your guys' thoughts are at. So first of all, we'll start with just if the panelists would be able to introduce themselves. We'll go Michael, Graham, and then Matt, and then we'll go into a presentation from Matt, followed by a discussion. So, Michael.
Kia ora, everybody. So, Michael Butler. I work for Fletcher Building and a business unit within Fletcher Building called Fletcher Tech. Within Fletcher Tech, they call me the GM of Enterprise and Digital Services. As part of my role, I look after our data and analytics and AI capability within there. And we've been doing some pretty neat experimentation in there, proof of concepts, which we'll share some about today. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Michael. Graham Hill from Becker, and I'm a Ways of Working lead, which is probably the most unusual job title you may hear. What that does is it gives me a full remit to explore and navigate ways of working, believe it or not. And that has led me down the AI route, amongst other augmented reality and technology-based solutions, in how we can make things a little bit easier, speed things up, dispel myths, and allow people to get to places they didn't know they could get to in a slightly different way. So I'm very excited to share our journey on using Microsoft Copilot and some other in-house developed tools. I'll pass over to Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I'm Matt Ensor. So up until a few weeks ago, I worked in the same organisation as Graham, Becker. I was there for more than 20 years, but I also have different hats that I wear. So I chair the AI Forum New Zealand's working group on generative AI, which our goal really is to accelerate practical adoption of AI. I'll kick into my presentation, which is just it's just 10 minutes, but I thought I get a lot of people saying, where's it going to lead? What's it going to do? And my focus really is on what can it do right now? It's fine to talk about things in 2030 or something, but the real challenge for businesses, organizations, and people is where do I get started? There's two types of AI. I often just say this just so people don't get confused. So there's AI that's been around for a while. So this is all about putting in lots of data, optimizing, operating, or predicting what goes on. And then there's this new form of AI, which we used to call large language models. Now we call generative AI because it's sort of gone beyond language. Again, it's a mathematical model, but it works with language. So what I'll do is I'll just show you some of the things that it can do right now, things you probably don't know about. The models itself, we have what are called foundation models. So these are models that have all of the data built into them. They work a bit like the human brain, like a neural network. And what OpenAI discovered was that the more parameters, so this is the linkages between words and the training, if you like, the more parameters you put in, it was a bit like magic. We thought it would be really good at these sort of things, summarization, maybe Q&A and that sort of stuff. What they discovered, and this was GPT-3, was that the more you train it, it gets what we call emerging capabilities. So the ability to understand humor, understand human behavior, and all these sorts of different things. As a comparison, the human brain has about 20 trillion parameters. So we've got a long way to go to get to there. But the AI is much better at remembering and things like that. Here's my favorite slide. You can tell I didn't use AI to produce this, but so for, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of years, this is what's linked you to getting stuff done with technology. So you had to go to, I don't know, university or a course, or at least have someone teach you how to do stuff. And so typically people were good at a subset of things that they could do. What's happened is large language models have jumped into here. So they kind of replace skills and training. And the way to get into those is prompting. So I don't have very long. I'm just going to show you one example, and it's as related to construction as I thought I could do. Good example, because I don't really know much about construction. And so I'm going to use a large language model to help me out here. So this is ChatGPT, and I've just loaded up, I don't know if you can see that, it's a drawing I got off the internet. And so I've asked ChatGPT, hey, here's a drawing, can you describe it? So there's a drawing here. What it's done is it's gone through and it's read everything. It's kind of worked out what it was. And it's now gives me a description. So to me, this is gold. You know, we've been wanting to do this with drawings for 30 years. Imagine you just throw in all your drawings, it will describe all of them. But actually, GPT is really good at reviewing. So I said, oh, can you review this for me so you can see? This is pretty general stuff. I could dive into each of these things. But it's got that ability to review. I'm saying, oh, I want to cross 30 meters. Seems a pretty decent span for me. Can you design the depth of the beam for me? Now, one of the things you've got to be a little bit careful about is large language models aren't great at mathematics. They don't always get it right. So you do need to check check what it's doing. But imagine if you're just using this to check a design. So it's come up with all these things. I don't know much about them, but I had an engineer say it should be 2.5 meters deep. I need to sort of know how much it's going to cost. Can you do me a inventory of materials and a schedule to complete? So here we go. It's working out all the things that probably need. So this is free. This is GPT-4. It hasn't had any training apart from what's sitting in it. What we could have done is loaded up some design manuals, perhaps some previous tenders, and told it to use those. This is just what's sitting inside its training. So this is the worst it could possibly be. Now, I don't know whether this was right or not, but actually it's not very useful like that. Can you turn it into a table and estimate costs for me in New Zealand dollars? So here we go. I want to build a 30-meter span bridge. I don't know what it would be. You know better than me. But it could be about $3 million and take 12 to 14 to 18 months. So it's just a kind of an example of just with no training, with a free tool, suddenly I have gone from being entirely incompetent to having perhaps an idea of what I should be expecting from my contractor and engineer. There are things called GPTs. So again, if you want to make one, it costs money, but if you want to use one, I believe it's free. And so if you go in and search for construction, so what are these? This is AI that people have trained beyond what I showed you. So they've put in some of their own information or things or documents or things like that. So you can see there's a whole lot here. Some of them will be rubbish, I'm sure. I found one that was quite good. This one here called Construction Manager, a guy called Chris Humes. And so what he's done is he's put all this stuff in. You can see the kind of stuff that AI can do. Potential issues, can you review it? How does this clause affect the project's costs? So all of a sudden I've gone from knowing nothing to having a way in, I guess, to being able to see what kind of risks might be within the contract. I don't know if you know, I threw this into Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. I said, "Oh, can you make me a PowerPoint of this?" So here we go. It's scrolling really quickly on my screen, so I don't know how many you'll see. And I don't know whether you want to use a PowerPoint on your job. But you could turn this into all kinds of things. You could turn it into a Excel spreadsheet, into a Gantt chart. It makes me cringe when I see this image here. It's something out of the 80s, isn't it? Last time I wore a suit and a tie and a hard hat to a construction site. I just want to finish off by showing you something that's relatively new. Here's an image here. I hope you can see it. I just grabbed this, as you can see, off the web. I don't know, does that look safe to you? My intuition says probably not. Imagine if you had a camera that just looks at the unloading area of your construction site, and every minute you say, "Hey, just take a look. Can you identify any health and safety issues with this?" So it's exactly what I did, and it came back with this. Proper load handling. Some workers don't have gloves. Not everyone's wearing high vis. Full traffic hazards. Poor housekeeping. So you can have a camera on your work site looking at anything, and just every minute get AI to answer the question, is there anything here that looks dangerous, or can you see anything that has health and safety impact? So to finish off, things I'm seeing, I say to people, don't panic about generative AI. It's organizations that aren't using it at all, they're not seeing any problems. They're not becoming uncompetitive, and that's because we're just really early on. I guess every day, the people who are creating these things are adding capability. What we're seeing people using it for is finding things, organizing things, and what I call consolidating things. So remember that drawing I showed you where it read it all through, and why not just throw all your stuff into a sort of a knowledge source, and let AI find stuff for you, or link stuff that's relevant together. I've mentioned that, but one of the things I'm seeing, I've never been a fan of Microsoft Copilot until about, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, because when it started off, it was like, it's a little bit underwhelming. And it's good to have the panel here, because what I'm seeing is actually it's becoming a key way that OpenAI and others are able to bring their technology right into integrating with what you do. So keep an eye out on Microsoft Copilot. Cost you a few bucks at the moment, but it was getting better value for money every day. Thing people wonder, is AI going to get smarter? Well, actually, the way to make AI smarter is to break problems into steps. We have what's called one shot at the moment, where you ask it for a solution and it will just give you the solution. When the AI actually works it out into different steps and goes away and does some research, the performance of the AI gets much better. So I'll just leave you with this, really. Things are about to get interesting. I don't know if you know this guy, Sam Altman. I quite like this. This is the most interesting year in human history, well, apart from all future years. I just want to do a little bit of plug for Engineering New Zealand. So they're running training on AI. All you need to do is go to engineeringnz.org, head on Learning Professional Development, log in as a guest. It's a bit of a self-plug because I'm running their training for them, but this is really good stuff, right? It's all about practical. It's all about stuff that's here now. It's not talking about the esoteric arguments about AI. So have a look there. There's a 1-hour course. So imagine what I've just done, but extend it over an hour, and there's a full day in-person course. Imagine what I've just done and extend it over 8 hours. My view is if you do the 8-hour course, you will be in the top 0.1% of people. So thank you very much. Those are my details. Do you want to get in contact with me? But I think this is a fantastic panel because everything you'll hear today is about how people are using generative AI, and that is the most, I'd argue, the most important thing. Kia ora.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. That was really interesting, and I will personally sign up for that course as well. So we will go to Graham now, if you want to update us on how you see things.
Yep, certainly. Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Matt. So yeah, I think maybe quickly to the comment in the chat from John T actually is quite a good place to start from. So yes, what Matt shared there with the example for ChatGPT is open AI, and the power of that is that everything is open. So privacy is a risk. So bear in mind, if you are putting in sensitive information, it is then available to everybody, and that's how things grow and learn and become awesome. But obviously, if it's under tight scrutiny or a piece of what you're doing with a client that you maybe shouldn't be sharing all the ifs and buts and questions, bear that in mind as to which tool you want to use. That probably leads me in nicely to the main journey I'm currently going on with Becca, and we were early adopters for the Microsoft Copilot, bringing it to organizations. So 300 licenses from September last year. As Matt alluded to, we've been on a journey with that, and as we quickly discovered, we're basically beta testing. So it's the people finishing off getting the product ready for Microsoft, is what all these companies were who signed up early enough. It's been very interesting in the fact that we've managed to get behind the scenes more than what we thought we would with Microsoft, and help influence and share feedback in real time and help grow the product better, and also understand some of the pitfalls. So where we're at now, about 9 months in, is we've got something which is actually starting to work better for organization, and on that basis we've got 300 people using it, and now we're at the point of having a business case to say yes, we could probably turn this on for a 4,000 employee wise enterprise. And that's based on the fact that through surveys and constant collaboration with all our trialists, we've unearthed savings in time, which is ultimately what we're all keen about with technology. Okay, hey, how can this make things easier for me but not lose my job? We are at a point now of where it's basically an hour a week. We can see that people can hand on heart say, yeah, I can save an hour a week. Might not sound a lot. We've got a company of over 4,000 people. So that's 4,000 hours a week that we could save. So that more than covers the cost of the licenses for our organization. And then as you get peaks and troughs of when you're doing bids or design work or anything else where this technology could be really helpful, that will grow exponentially and over time. And the big thing with all technology is getting in and using it and playing with it. And Microsoft Copilot has been attractive to a lot of companies, especially larger organizations where you've got a lot of data and you don't want to chuck it into the likes of OpenAI. And you can play around with it in the safety of your own ecosystem. And this is where we're really, really excited, because we have lots and lots of information. Becca's over 100 years old. We've worked with probably many of the people on this call and your companies, and there's lots and lots of information of stuff we've done before and things that we've done before we could do better. And what we can do now is we can interrogate that data and ask it questions and go, hey, I want to build a bridge in the Waikato over. What shall I do? Have we got a starting point for how to do this? Just like what Matt has demonstrated there, but we can do it from real data that we've done with clients, protected. If it's going through a tender process, we don't need to expose all of that to the big wide world, especially if we're competing against other competitors. And that's starting to allow us to actually leverage the knowledge that we know we have, but not rely upon retaining people or facilitating massive meetings and long design planning sessions to try and pull that information out. We can get to a start point quicker and then go, so this person was the person who wrote this, let's get that person involved, that'll be really good. Or this person's the one that actually was the engineer to contract, let's get that person through. And who was our contractors? That seemed to go well, let's maybe work out a collaboration with them again. So quite quickly you can pull together a real good opportunity. Real example, only last week we did some work with a Waikato-based council, and we were going through a design review. We ran the meeting online just because that's the way the world's starting to go a bit more. And what Copilot allows you to do through the Microsoft Teams function is when you record a meeting, it can then capture the transcript of what's being said. You can cut and paste that into other forms of AI as well, but doing it through Microsoft means, again, it's protected, it's safe, so you can let people know that it isn't going to get sent here, there, and everywhere. And then our administrator quickly did the meeting notes and summaries and actions in 30 minutes as a result, and this was a several-hour workshop. Usually it would take at least a day to do that kind of work. She could actually be more present in the meeting and contribute, and then afterwards go through and just validate and verify the information with basic self-checking, saying, did that person actually say that? Is that the kind of thing we would have agreed to, before publishing notes in a timely manner? So that is just one of the big opportunities that we've started to see come through, and hopefully everybody on this call will then start to see that themselves, because more and more things are sort of virtual, and this is where technology can just take you forward a bit. So I've probably rambled for a little bit there. I'm happy to defer to Michael now about his experiences.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting story as you talk about the power of the Microsoft Teams function that's in there. I think we've got to be also careful about ways that people are used to doing meetings. I had a story from someone where the main meeting finished, and then they carried on discussing other stuff that wasn't relevant to the meeting, and it still captured that. So you're just going to make sure there's a little bit of etiquette around when you're using these tools to understand what they're doing and cut those calls at the right time. Otherwise, people might get notes on stuff they're not meant to know about. But for our journey within Fletcher Building, we've been looking at it since about October, November last year. We've been through a journey of putting in a policy, which is starting to tackle a lot of the ways that we handle AI within Fletcher Building. And then we've done a project, or a couple of projects, but one of the projects we did was a proof of concept, just building on the last image that Matt shared around health and safety. So what we wanted to do was see if there were ways within the data that we already had, as well as taking external data, to be able to try and predict by site injuries that may occur at those sites. And it's really done from the perspective of giving another data point around where to worry from an organization, so that as you're having those stand-ups, you can talk about it and just have people that are more aware around things that are potentially slipping over time as you get a little bit more complacent. Some of the stats, so I guess what we used was a different technology. So we partnered with Google to be able to do that, not Microsoft, and used one of their machine learning engines within that. We pulled together incident data from historical, forecasted weather data, and some people data just around demographics to be able to help us sort of narrow down where to concentrate. With the proof of concept, we had some, I guess, the good results, but the not good results, because you're talking about health and safety, but we were able to predict 10 out of 11 injuries that caused fractures across the organisation. We were able to predict 83% of lost time injuries due to medical treatments, and some other injuries that were happening within the organisation. So we got to about, I think it was about 86% was the accuracy of our model. What we've done now, we've taken that out of being a proof of concept. We saw the value that was in there, and we've now turned that into a productionized environment, which took a little bit more work, because the main things you needed to look at that stage were data and data quality. That's the old adage of rubbish in, rubbish out. So I had to get some really good practices in place around our data. And we had to make sure that the data frequency was the same. So you couldn't have a forecast of 2 weeks of weather data, a week of people data, etc. They had to have the same sort of frequency, otherwise it skewed the results. But some really good learnings in there for us for the future. Another area that we're looking into, and it's sort of a build on what was shown in GPT, is the ability to be able to get a plan and then be able to create a bill of materials off the back of that. So we're just starting to work through that sort of use case at the moment within Fletcher Building. So that's a couple of areas we've done there. Building a little bit also on another area is even just within business, we have these sites like SharePoint sites that have a lot of information in them. What you can do is get them to be able to index that and make it easier to be able to ask questions across that information. And we've done that within one of our construction departments. And it's things like, how do you onboard a project manager? What do they need to know on day one? And it'll summate the onboarding tasks that'll be in there, and then how to raise a purchase order, and all these questions that you're normally going to people to ask. You can get access to that information more readily through these tools, which just helps with that time to value around people. So that's a couple of examples there.
Great, thank you very much, all of you. Actually, that was really insightful. I just want to go to a couple of the questions, and then I do want to get on to some of the sort of more applications, a bit more about the applications, but there's a bit to cover first in the sort of background. But to Julie's question, what is the perception of tender evaluators receiving AI generic content? And if the government insists on disclosing AI on tenders, what impact will this have on scoring evaluation? Does anyone want to talk about tendering, perhaps?
I did put something in the chat back to Julie just now, and it's more just having the empathy and understanding that this is emerging, and clients in particular are risk adverse to anything that might come across as plagiarism or rushed, or things that haven't had the proper due diligence and being submitted. So being transparent, being open, that's why they're now starting to ask for disclaimers to say if you've used it and where. The key thing here is, and hopefully we're just demonstrating that between the panel today, it's a way to get to a place quicker, but you then still need to put the checks and balances in to verify it. So this is what we've all got the opportunity to do now in industry, is to say, hey, we can respond to tenders quicker because we can leverage technology. But the reassurance we're giving you is we've had this senior engineer, this person validate this information and make sure it's relevant to what you're doing. And to the other questions in the chat as well about which form of AI you've maybe used to get there, we've done it in a paid subscription version where it's protected, so we haven't suddenly exposed this tender to the market. So hopefully that helps. And maybe Matt's got something to say. Were you wanting to add something, Matt? No?
Yeah, it comes down to that, what is the competitive advantage? If everyone's using generative AI to create their tenders, they are going to become a bit more samey. And so what I'm seeing is your competitive advantage is even moving more strongly onto relationships and track record, and the tender document will be less important. Obviously the price, the price is important, but all those other things, I think evaluators will tend to put less weight on now.
I just want to share how I've been using it. There's been two ways. One is to prompt me for some ideas for things. It's a really good way to just sort of ask, hey, I actually asked about how do you manage misinformation in AI, and it came back with a list of things that we've sort of talked about, but verifying the data, so cross-checking information that's going in. Obviously, like Michael said, the quality of the information going in is really important. How the algorithms are being produced, so understanding what AI is doing to produce that, making sure you've got that human interaction, regularly auditing it, just checking, and then feedback and prompt engineering, making sure you're writing your prompts that you're asking, making sure they're well, and educating everyone. So that was a way I used it, was just to get some ideas. The other way I use it is when I'm quite tired at the end of the day, but I've got something and I haven't quite finished it. I might just dump everything I've done into, say, ChatGPT, or I use Notion as well, and say, can you please, write this into an introduction or whatever. So I've been finding it really useful for just a bit of a helping hand, to be honest. Is there anything anyone wants to jump in now, or should we go into sort of some more applications of it? Oh, we could go to this last question. Could you walk us through a practical example of how you could generate an Excel schedule of quantities from a set of PDF drawings? Does anyone want to talk through that one?
QS trying to speed up his throughput there. There you go. I think Matt touched on it. I mean, there's various connotations you could do with this stuff. In the Microsoft element, we're finding that Excel is quite limited still in how it can translate and things. It's more like Clippy, if anyone remembers that. It's more like a help tool. But I think you need to go into the ChatGPT world and experiment with, obviously, information that's safe to do so if it's open or a paid subscription. And it's like anything, you just keep putting things in, asking it questions and refining it to try and get to the end you want to get to. And it's always good to have a case study, like a base data that maybe you've already done the legwork on, and then give it the same information, ask it to give you the output, and then compare and contrast. So that's one application, but maybe someone's got something else to add.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with generative AI, and it's different from the other types of AI, is you'll get a different answer each time. It may be the same 80% of the time, or 90% of the time, 95% of the time. So most of the importance is getting the tool set up so that it's using specific information, and tell it that it can't use other information. It can't make stuff up. I didn't get a chance to go through that today, but there are things. I mean, OpenAI have a product called GPTs, which I sort of talked about today. But you can load up all your documents. And then in the prompting, say, only use these documents to base what you're doing it on. Explain all your working, review your work, and do it in these 6 steps. And then all of a sudden, the same technology, but you'll get, much better results. So it's when I said it replaces skills and experience, or skills and training, you do also have to have that little bit of skills and training in generative AI, so that you know how to get the best out of it. And I think, to be frank, that's the most important kind of thing that you need to pick up. And it's hard to do it. It's hard to do it from searching online and stuff like that. What I found when I was at Becca was that there was a what would you call it, a Teams chat group, or it could be a what's that other one? Sorry, I've forgotten the name of it. But basically, everyone put their ideas into it, and that's how I learned. People were saying, "Oh, I used it for this." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, that's brilliant!" And so at the moment, I think if you're not part of a group or some kind of training that's giving you these ideas, it is a bit hard to make them up by yourself. But hopefully, over time, these things will get built into products. We call them wrappers. So you might be using, QS.com, and it has all this stuff built in. But that's not quite here yet.
Yeah, and then for our approach, I guess what we work through, and I mentioned it in my spiel before. We're actually doing that. We're creating a repository with documentation in it that we're training it on to be able to refine the set of answers it can provide, and then we're doing prompting over the top to be able to refine it further, so that it can find a window in a document and a door and so on and so forth, and then go through and be able to provide measurements of product based on that. But it's something that we've had to build ourselves internally to be able to do that. It's not something that's sort of readily available on the web. But as you say, Matt, things that we're thinking about building today, it's moving so quickly that, especially in the startup communities, that they are turning into solutions quite rapidly as well. So when you search, it may not be available today, but give it a month or two and search again and just keep looking, because they are popping up all over the place.
I have a question about how do we see AI sort of encouraging younger people into the industry, or I think what I've seen from some of the applications of it, say in a construction management tool, is being able to speak into your phone and it can do things that way. So perhaps if there's literacy issues or dirty hands or that sort of thing, like there's quite an area that it opens up, I think. What are your guys' thoughts on that side of it?
Yeah, look, I've certainly seen it from that perspective as well. A lot of our younger people are more familiar with the technology, so it's not so much a barrier to get into, but the knowledge that's in your hands to start off with allows them to get up to speed faster. And also, as you said around your example of people with potential learning disabilities like dyslexia, etc., it helps get a base going that's in there. That's a well-constructed document or a well-constructed email.
Oh, you just went on to mute,
Michael. I think we've lost your audio there, Michael.
I think you can't hear us either. No, he's still thinking. That's all right. Maybe we'll go in and see if Michael comes back on. I mean, my few cents to sort of that topic is it's a good way. I think Matt touched on it about learning and training. Like we're as a junior member of an organization, whatever role you're playing, suddenly you don't have to go and tap that senior person on the shoulder and maybe feel a bit awkward and expose what you don't know in the same way. Ever since the internet came to life, or libraries, you could go back to, information's there. It's just everyday information gets easier to access, and it's just learning how to access that and then validate that information and leverage it for your own personal gain and ultimately the company you work for. So I don't know if Michael's back now.
Yeah, it should be back. Am I back? Yep. Right. Yeah. I don't know where we got to. My phone rang and took over my headphones.
That's all right. We didn't hear that call. So you're good.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank goodness. What I was talking about is, especially with people with learning disabilities around dyslexia and others, it's a good way to get a well-formed document up and running to start off with, and then you can just fill in with the right context. It is a knowledge accelerator, as you talk about, but it doesn't give you wisdom and it doesn't give you context necessarily that's right for what you're trying to do. So that's why it's an accelerator, but it's not the finished product. You've got to be able to give it still that context and that wisdom so that it does go out right. I think we talk about AI generated, human verified. That's maybe a tagline we need to put underneath some things.
Yeah, that's really good. I think we'll move into some more of the sort of applications. I see a question from Sarah there, but just quickly again, I asked probably ChatGPT for some examples of AI in civil construction. So we've sort of gone through that sort of planning, the construction planning, there's labour management, safety monitoring, cost estimation and design optimization. So those are all things that you guys have talked about. And then it goes into sort of like material management. Again, that's planning, predictive maintenance, which I thought was quite a cool thing. And you can imagine how that can improve efficiency and optimize your operations by predicting when maintenance will be needed and letting you know. Robotics and automation, obviously, and I'm sure we'd be keen to hear stories from the industry of what people are using in the robotics and automation space. There'll be loads of examples of that. drones for site surveying. I also saw something with visual inspections. So it was a site visit I went on with McConnell Dowell last week. Thank you very much, McConnell Dowell, for the site visit. And it was they get a sort of a younger engineer to be going through with the camera and visually inspecting. It's recorded, and then someone more senior can check that. I thought that was a great thing, an open space where you can look around and see how it's coming along. So integrating it with your BIMs models. But then also quality control, and I'm really interested in how AI can improve our quality control. So those are some ideas. So does anyone want to perhaps address Sarah's question, which is what are you seeing with AI in operation of heavy machinery, cranes, or jump in and speak to the applications of it?
Yeah, from what I'm seeing from a machinery perspective is that a lot of the builders of machinery are actually incorporating it into the machines themselves and having them tracking a lot more of what's going on within the machine. So as you're getting into predictive maintenance, so being able to signal back to head office that these things are starting to go wrong, so they can do proactive maintenance. Some, and I think it was John Deere, was starting to get into more taking into account the environment around them, so taking on weather, taking on other elements to be able to alter the mode of operation. And we'll probably see that move into more heavy machinery. The trick with some of the heavy machinery stuff is the certification. So what you've got to go through to be able to make sure that it will work all the time and that you can rely on that feature. So I think there'll be a path of still a little bit of time before it gets incorporated more into a lot of what you rely on machinery every day to come through. But it's starting to happen. It's definitely starting to happen. Other ones are for health and safety. So proximity zone, if people are walking close to heavy machinery, being able to alert the driver just to make sure that they know what's going on as well. And that's the incorporation of cameras and so on and so forth.
So it's looking a bit further into the future, and it's always hard to know how far with AI. What we're seeing is that you can start to control machinery not by telling it what to do, but what you want to achieve, and the large language model will then convert that into what it needs to do. And so it's more that sort of augmenting, not autonomy, but augmenting maybe a less skilled operator and preventing, he or she making mistakes and things like that. So that's certainly coming.
There was a question from Matt Finlay. Do you feel the potential impact of AI is understood, and what stops people from leaning into starting? And I guess sort of tagging onto that is this, I guess, uncertainty of AI and where it's heading, and a bit of I'll say fear, but I don't know that it's fear. It's just uncertainty. And it does remind me that when I was going through high school, we didn't, the web didn't sort of, what did I see? 1990 that came out, and then Hotmail was 96, which was the year I finished school. Google launched in 98. So it wasn't that long ago, and we didn't even have internet, email or Google. So, we can deal with change, and I think this is just another one of those big steps that is coming, but we need to understand it and get comfortable with it. So does anyone want to speak to Matt's question about what's stopping people from leaning into starting and that side of it?
Yeah, I'll have a go. So it's like I think you've touched on it there, Michelle. It's something new, and there's obviously reputational concerns for companies. We touched on that about with tenders and things like that, and if you may be feeling it's going against you in this early stages, but like all new things, you just got to work out how you want to experiment. What are the benefits that you're seeking? What are the areas that you're trying to find efficiencies and gains in? What are the areas that you can maybe do better at? And if you're tendering and you're not scoring as well in certain areas, is there something you can leverage through technology? Is it general site safety records and things like that you can maybe improve upon? Maybe look at alternate suppliers of machinery, contractor utilization, whatever it might be. But it's just another means to an end. So play with it is the key message. I think we'd all agree here. Just play with it in the right, safe manner, just like if you're playing with a digger. Don't maybe go straight onto State Highway 1, find a field and learn how to use it there. It's the same with technology. So do that, and then you'll start to see the things that could become interesting. It'll prompt things towards you as well, because it will start to understand the kind of things you ask for. But as an organisation, I think that's what myself and Michael have been doing with our organisations, and previously with Matt. We've gone, okay, there's actually a more robusted, protected thing through the likes of Microsoft. Let's give that a go, and then that's already put some security steps in place for our organisation to experiment and see what to do. And then straight away, you invite curiosity and questions, and also understand limitations. As per the chat, like people saying, why Copilot, why not ChatGPT? Yeah, why? I don't know. It's all relative, really. What do you want to get out of it? What's the best tool for you? It might be you actually just need to pay for a draftsman. You might not need technology at all. It could be something that's just so bespoke and different. You don't need a shortcut. You actually need to let the journey unfold. So that's my few words. Anybody else to add?
Yeah, I think around our approach to it, and I'm sort of picking up a little bit also on what Andres has asked. That's there in the next question, is the mixture of spreading it, getting a wide use across the organisation. So one experiment that's in there, and it starts sharing it, because what you're trying to do is build, I guess, just like you do with data, or just like you do with health and safety, you're trying to build the literacy and the understanding within the organisation. And that's usually done well with areas that they can go to read up and understand more about it, having a few little training things to dispel the myths, a few webinars like this to run internally within the crew, and then get a coalition of the willing that are wanting to go and experiment things and willing to share, to start publishing little wins that you've had, little experiences that they've had as you've gone through. And then that starts, I guess, showing people how you can incorporate it into your day-to-day work and where the opportunities are. I don't think we're going to have like Terminator or anything else in the near future, as far as I can see, coming through, but it is this acceleration and increase in productivity you can get by using these tools as a starter in your everyday work life that's there. Yeah.
So I'm talking to organisations almost daily now who are saying, hey, what do I do? And the biggest mistake I see is that they'll say, oh, we'll get some Copilot licenses, or we'll do this and we'll give it to the CFO and the CIO and they can try it. We at Becca, we had an internal tool called Frankly AI, which was we invented Copilot before Microsoft did, and it's had 500,000 conversations with Becca staff over the last year and a bit. And it was very clear who benefits from it. And it's not the management, it's not the executive. They know what they're doing, hopefully. It was people who were unsure about their roles, who typically weren't great performers, probably below average in the scheme of things. And they were using it to radically improve their work. I talked to, I went into the logs and I found the person who was using it the most, more than me. And I rang her up and I said, what do you use it for? And she said to me, oh, Matt, it's changed my career. So it wasn't like, oh, my emails are great. Oh, I'm saving an hour a week. No, it changed her career because she used to be kind of confused about things when she was asked to do things, or she'd write some stuff and she wasn't sure if it was in the right tone or language and things like that. And so I think the benefits are at the, and I don't even know how to describe it, but the folk who aren't yet fully competent. And so organizations need to focus on that area, not just make it into a management tool or manager's tool.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing it around that access to the organization's knowledge, which is usually hard to get. Just building on what you're saying, Matt, it's that I've got a question about a policy, I've got a question about how do I submit something, how do I do something within the organization, and it can give them access to that a lot quicker. Which then allows them to get on and do what they want to do next. Because you can spend a lot of time trying to find someone that understands this particular part to ask a question, but if you build these directories up right and you give them a good vehicle for accessing, which is typing or searching, which a lot of people are very used to with Google and other tools, then it gets the information to them when they need it.
Yeah, and the thing, the statement I quite like, I don't think we've maybe been specific about today, is admin fatigue. So, you know, we live in a digital age, and what these kind of tools can do is it can help with that. And I think Matt's example touched on that beautifully. You know, somebody probably spent a lot of sleepless nights and worries about, how do I respond to this email? How do I do this? Technology's there helping you with that now. It gives you a first cut, it gives you a second cut, a third cut. But instead of you walking up to a senior person or a colleague or something to keep on getting them to check your homework, it's there and it's safe, it's protected for you, it's personal, and you can learn and grow with it. What that starts to do in time is makes you more confident. It does make you more efficient, but ultimately it takes away the worry from some things that could be deemed as more remedial, simple tasks, and get you to a point of, actually, now I've got something I need help with and it's warranted. And then people start to see you coming with relevant questions rather than this person's just always asking for a leg up, rather than getting to the meaty bit of going, right, I've got all this information, but this is still a gap, and highlight that and then go, oh, is it? Oh, did we not cover that off? No, we haven't. Okay, right, that's something that's meaningful. That's going to get buy-in rather than you've misunderstood something. So yeah, I think admin fatigue is a huge opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we've obviously touched on optimization and efficiency. You know, it's definitely there to improve efficiency of people's time and also equipment and supply chain, even that sort of thing. The other thing, I think it's really great, and one of you did touch on it earlier, was about having that time. It was about the minutes being written already and the person being able to be present and thinking. And I think that's a real advantage that I really look forward to seeing more and more of that, where people can have that human interaction, that communication, and leave all that, you know, the stuff that takes up someone's headspace that doesn't necessarily need to anymore, that they're able to innovate and create and communicate with each other and collaborate. So that's what I really love about the the future of it, taking away the endless hours that are spent perhaps pulling together reports at the end of the month, you know, that sort of thing, where it can help with that. And I think rather than looking at it like it's going to take over our jobs, it's going to actually improve our intelligence and our ability to think more deeply about problems and get that interaction between people, so that we're sort of, you know, using the common knowledge and out there that other people already understand. So I think that's a really good advantage of it.
Yeah, and I think on that point, I mean, you touched on collaboration there, and by allowing not one person to be solely accountable to sit in the corner of a room and scribe everything, you're actually re-inviting attendees to be part of that feedback process. So technology's there, basically scribing. It's going to get things wrong. People's going to talk. It's going to say Dave said something when Sarah said something and whatever else. But you can do that sense checking, and you're not suddenly saying, oh, this contractor brought a scribe along and whatever they said, they've manufactured and manipulated to their own end. It's kind of agnostic, and everybody else can come in and verify that work. So it's taking away the risk of a sole person being responsible to minute an entire piece of something. That said, it's also knowing when that isn't appropriate. So sometimes you do need a professional person to sit there and go, right, we'll talk about a particular subject now. We need a subject matter expert to sit here and take note for legal counsel, whatever it might be, and make sure that all the T's and I's are dotted and crossed. So yeah, it's a journey, and you've got to figure that out, how best to use it.
So I think we've sort of got through the questions, and I've pretty much touched on everything I wanted to touch on. But has anyone got anything they wanted to add, or any last questions to come through?
I think we've sort of covered a bit in there, but one we probably haven't gone deeply into is that governance side and the what you just got to be careful of, right? And it's getting more into, like, for ourselves from Fletcher Building, we've got a stance around a policy that we created. So what do we stand for? What don't we stand for when we're using these tools? We ended up putting a working group just to make sure, as we're doing different initiatives or thinking about things to solve with AI, that the right lenses across it from the start. And then we're doing do's and don't campaigns around there. And we've sort of broken it into two 2 to 3 areas. The first area is everyday AI. So how do you use it every day? What tools are good for what things? And there's a lot that can be covered from these template generations, etc., that are in there, even to content. And you're seeing new technologies come out from text to video or text to image, where it's able to generate lovely collateral for you. And that can be used in marketing or can be used in other areas. So that's that everyday productivity. Then we've got embedded AI, and the embedded AI is what's existing within its applications that we run day to day. So for some businesses, it might be Xero. For some businesses, it might be SAP as a big application. And what is our approach to that? Salesforce, etc. And what do we do and don't use within those? And then we've got our own custom stuff that we do. But what's common to all of them is just around how we're using it. So our responsibility about that. How do we make sure what we're using it for is transparent so people know what we're using it for? And then don't put personal information in there. Don't put customer information in there. Don't put your employee information in there. If you're trying to do something, make up a name, get it started, go through and do that, and then replace it once you get the output to come back. But just be very careful around that personal information and not sharing it.
Any closing remarks from Graham or Matt?
All I'd say is this, I think, maybe this is a little bit esoteric, but I think a lack of knowledge about how it can be used tends to embody itself as fear of using that technology. I often find people saying, "Oh, look, I'm scared to use it, don't know where to start." And it's not actually that they're, it's something to be scared of. It's just that they haven't worked out where to start. One of my training, I have the five next steps, and one of the steps is get it on your phone, because if it's just stuck on your work laptop, it's only so useful. I love the new GPT-4o. I put it at, I'm a little bit one end of the AI spectrum, but I have it on in my car, just on the, what do you call it, the text, the speech to text and stuff like that. And you just have a conversation with it, and you kind of tease it and explore what it can do for you. And it's sort of replaced the radio for me. But you can imagine if you're spending a half an hour a day with this technology, you're on that curve of making it relevant to all parts of your life. How about you, Graham?
Yeah. Totally. It's just playing with it, right? And whatever way you can, your kids, your friends, your family, like everyone's going to have a different experience of this. It doesn't just have to be work related. There's loads of things out there. Just remain curious and open. And when you're playing with it, just know the rules of the game like any toy. That'll be the biggest takeaway. But do that, and then start having questions within your own organisation if they're not already happening, or if they're happening and you're here now, you're obviously interested. Then let them know you're keen and interested in that conversation as well, because it's only by collective inputs will any organisation really know what's happening. To Matt's point earlier, like the CFO isn't really going to value from this. It's going to get the benefit if all these employees start using it and saving money and everything else, but you need the employees to actually come up with the use case and the benefits. Yeah.
And I think from myself, it's coming to you anyway. You're going to start seeing it more integrated into Apple. I think there's this new launch of Apple Intelligence that's getting created at the moment. It's going to get incorporated into your phone and start automating a lot more of those things, like stuff you want to know about. It sort of becomes your personal assistant. It's going to be going with you. Samsung's doing a similar thing. They've partnered in the back, I think, with Google to have a look at their AI models to be able to help enrich the Samsung experience. So it's going to come to mobiles and be there and be a part of what you do. That's where they're going to start capturing it. And it'll start getting incorporated a lot more into technology you use every day. So I think don't be afraid of it. Work out how to get the most out of it. Yeah, there's some pitfalls and bits and pieces you just got to be aware of around information and sharing and so on and so forth. But yeah, just incorporate into little things. Ask a question, a starter. Got that white space in your head when you've got to write something. Just ask the question and it'll come up with a starter for you, and just get going like that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's probably the biggest takeaway I've had this year from sort of this experience with you guys is is realizing how easily accessible it is, how just I can use it. Matt's given an example there of using it for homework experience with his children. Fraser gave an example of the image that was promoted with this webinar was he just asked a quick question for it to generate an image of the piece of equipment there. So I think that's yeah, and that's what we need to do, is just starting at the bottom, just really starting to get used to it, starting to understand. It's kind of like learning a new language, isn't it? Just hearing it, seeing it around the place, and understanding how we can start picking it up right through to obviously the much larger applications. But I was surprised at how I can just pick it up and use it right now. So hopefully we've encouraged everyone to give it a go, and there's a few links in there for connecting and hopefully join the Engineering New Zealand webinar, and yeah, thank you very much to the panelists for your imparting your knowledge and being part of this, and thank you very much to all the participants for arriving, and we'll see you at the next one, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.